So this is an attempt to show you what happens when there's more than one user in a project. Here on the left, we've got Simon W. And for his file locations, he stores his files in My Local Revit Projects. On the right, we've got this guy called Bob H. And his local files are stored on his desktop. It's going to be messy. But anyway, we've got these two guys working on the same project file. Bob H. goes to the Collaborate tab, looks at work sharing, and decides that he's going to be the owner of Workset 1, and clicks on OK. That's sort of okay, but at this stage of the project, everything is on Workset 1. So let's see what happens when the guy on the left, Simon W., wants to make some changes. When you highlight an object, notice how the tooltip now displays the workset before the name of the element. And if we want to go and try and make a change, for instance, selecting the diffuser, and moving it, let's see what happens when the move is made. We get this message. This error cannot be ignored. We can't edit the element until Bob H. resaves the element to Central and relinquishes it, and you reload latest. So what we can do now is place a request to Bob. And we then get the message that the editing request has been placed, and a message will update when a response is received. So let's close this and click on Cancel. Back at Bob's shop, he receives an editing request. This request has been requested by Simon W. Another user requests your permission to edit these elements. They're being highlighted as we select the editing box. We can also click on Show, which would zoom into the object if it was visible, or it would open another view so that we could see it. Now Bob's got two choices. He can either grant Simon W. permission to use those elements, or he can deny it. Let's click on Grant. My editing request has been granted. Bob is allowing me permission to edit these elements. Once again, I could show this, but now I can select it, and I should be able to move it. Let's take a look at the Collaborate tab for Simon W. Here we can see that the active workset, Workset 1, is not editable. When we look at the worksets, we can see that Bob H. is the owner and Simon W. is a borrower of elements within that workset. As you can see, this workflow can introduce some challenges into the way that you work with elements in a Revit project. You need to manage the use of worksets. When creating elements, those elements have to be placed onto a workset, or you can create a workset. Let's create a new one, call this HVAC, and make it the active workset. So just like AutoCAD, anything that I now create goes onto the HVAC workset. Notice from the Collaborate tab that we can also reload latest. That means that we don't have to share our changes with everybody without seeing their changes. For the Synchronize with Central, we've got the Synchronize and Modify settings, or we've got Synchronize Now. And with the activation of work sharing, the View control bar now has another button for work sharing display. Here we can have a look at work sharing display settings. Objects owned by me, are shown in green, owned by others in red, and not owned in blue. We could look at the owners, whether elements have been updated, or by work set. So let's take a look at owners. And we'll turn the owners option on. And now we can see that I'm the owner of one diffuser. I can see I'm not going to get much work done here. And Bob H owns everything else. We can look at this by work set. And of course, as the number of users increases and the number of work sets increase, then we get a corresponding number of elements showing different colours in the plans. We also have a selection method that allows us to only select editable elements. Anything that isn't editable can't be selected. This means the number of mistakes you make by inadvertently selecting and dragging elements can be dramatically cut down.